And I'm yeah, so. Hello, everybody.
Ah, the rat.
Abby, good to have you. So, thank you for coming. I do appreciate it, both for yourself and for Blake. What are we doing? First things first, the checklist. Always do the checklist. No new follows since last stream, so no one listened to that. Thank you kindly, and hi, Abby. Hope you're doing good today. Same for you, Blake, of course. But yeah, so. No new follows since last time, so that's not a thing. Next up, Plague got first, so let's go and... Oh, that's the wrong screen. Let's go and mark that as... There we go. Up to 5. You're getting caught up to Abby. Careful, careful. What else? So that's done. Next on the checklist, badges. Ooh. A conundrum actually. See, I did spend the day making some badges, but they're not for today. So do I advertise the badges that are for tomorrow? Or no? I mean, I guess I should, right? That makes sense. If I'm advertising something, it should be for something that's coming up to make you want to come back. Advertising the badges the same day is... Maybe I'm bad at advertising. Anyway. One sec, let me find the... Where's the board? Ooh, got it. Ooh, come on. Ooh. Oh, that's... Here we are. Okay, so... but it does say badges currently available. That's another conundrum. I should have a different board that says badges to be available. But I don't. So what I'm going to say is this. These badges are not currently available, but they will be available tomorrow. So just, I trust that you can use your human ears and understanding and logic to understand that fact. And if you can't, please no yell at the skitter. Right, so yeah, so as I was saying, tomorrow is going to be our big, tomorrow's going to be our big 100 stream. And as I said, I'm going to be doing, which got a little bit more of a close reading. Yeah, that's, again, for tomorrow, not for today. But yeah, tomorrow there will be badges for stream number 100. I'm going to be doing a little bit more of an ASMR style up-close reading thing. I would demonstrate to you, but I do need to change my audio stuff around to make it work. So, yeah. So hopefully it will go well. Hopefully you'll like it. And the badges, which again are for tomorrow, not for today. We got tomorrow's sub-badge, which is a big crown with an 100 on it, to show that you are a valuable paying member of this community and are thus rich enough to afford a crown. And for anyone who's just a normal member of the community and just shows up with their time, you don't get a crown because poor people don't get crowns. You get my undying love in the big 100 badge. And a little heart. Yeah. Rich people get crowns, poor people get love. This is the way in the Skitter community. But yeah. So those are available tomorrow. Which, again, as always, I'll be doing the lowest possible thing. So if you watch for an hour or you subscribe once, you get the badges. But yeah, just I wanted to do a little something for... I guess this one's actually an event, so it makes sense that I'm doing something for it. So yeah, those will be available tomorrow. Disregard the thing that says currently available. But yeah, so tomorrow those will be available, and we'll be doing an up-close reading. So yeah. Hey Naska. I am just going to good to have you here. Just going to repeat again. Badges on screen, not currently available. Those are tomorrow's badges. I need a different board, but I didn't make one because I didn't think to. So I'm an idiot. But yeah. So those will be available tomorrow. What else is there to say? No new books today, so none of them to show you. There was something I was going to ask about. What was it I was going to say? I had a little... Oh, that was what I was going to talk about. I can't think of any good cursed items to talk about today. So today I'm also going to be advertising something else. Namely, one of the emotes. I say, trying to get my emotes up so I can use one. Ooh. I decided that I should start talking about the emotes because I've dumped most of them all at the start, and so I don't know if people know what are available. But I decided I'm going to talk about the emotes because I do need to fill time, and I want to promote some of them. Because for some reason Twitch shows you which emotes people like more, and it doesn't make me feel like, oh, these are more successful emotes than other ones I should fail at. It just makes me feel bad for the ones that don't get a lot of use. So today, I'm going to be celebrating the mysterious pouch emote. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Skitter, that's not an emote. That's distinctly mysterious. It doesn't reveal what emotion I'm feeling currently. And I say to you, well, do you always want to be showing off what emotion you're currently feeling? Don't you want sometimes to be mysterious? Be a little bit coy, a little bit subtle? Sometimes maybe you don't want to show what you're feeling. And also you want to have an object in a bag. The mysterious pouch emote is for these times. Cool, sophisticated, mysterious, aloof. You're like that person who's sitting at a poker table with a visor and a pair of sunglasses on. No one knows what you're thinking. They don't know that you've got a 2 and a 7 and they're not the same suit. They don't know that all of your poker chips are actually chocolate coins that you've painted to look right. And as long as you keep your cool, they'll never know. Mysterious pouch emote. I don't know why I've decided that I'm going to do this. Advertising the emotes doesn't really make a lot of sense. But I feel like I decided to do it, and so I'm doing it. Mysterious pouch. Worthy of your time. Available at SkitterSkreetch channel. I don't know. I'm mostly just bored of talking about the cursed items. I really need to sit down and pick out the more interesting ones, but yeah. Yeah, look at how cool Plague is right now. What could be in those pouches? Is each one containing a different thing? Do they all contain the same thing? Maybe they got nothing in them at all. Who could say? But yeah. Yeah. This is also a good time to eat ice cream, Nasker. You are right. There's never a bad time for that. Now what am I doing? That was everything I had prepared for the mysterious pouchy mocha. I'm bad at preparing to fill time. Oh, how are you guys days doing, by the way? I always just do a little bit of thingy and I never really chat to you, because my stream is a bad format for it, but do any of you have anything you'd like to talk about? How's you getting on? I hope you're doing well. Oh, let's take a moment to contemplate the vastness of my library. And I should also I should talk about the book I did the other day. That would be good. That's fair. It can be hard to figure that out. My go-to is pretty generally cheese, because it's the only thing I have available. But if I had other choices, I think I spent a lot of time thinking about that. There used to be so many options when I was a normal rat. I lived in a city that had quite a lot of takeaway places. And would you go and wait outside the Chinese place for the food that got thrown out? Would you stand outside the kebab shop for someone to drop chips? There was a pizza place I knew. They always throw out whole pizzas that didn't get that people would order and not pick up. That was a great place to be. I miss the surface. That's fair. I'm glad you're feeling better, but it can be... I mean, boring days can be harder than difficult days, really. Like, not having anything to do is its own sort of struggle, isn't it? Because at least when there's something bad going on, you've got something for your mind to focus on. When it doesn't, your mind just sort of wanders and it makes the day feel longer. Yeah. I feel like I should comment something about the pineapple on pizza remote, but I'm violently neutral on the subject. You should have what you like. I never order my own pizza, I just eat what people throw out, so I'll get what I can get. But yeah, what am I talking about? Oh yeah. So I should also probably mention the book we're reading today, or the books, because I'm planning to get through both of these. Goal is to do about an hour and a half of reading a day, because I'm feeling a little bit more sturdy. And yeah, these are both by Nikolai Gogol, who, when I found them, there was a little biography of the man near them. Like, I think it used to be a section on him, but none of the other books was intact. The biography, however, Lamp deemed was not a good enough book to go out of the library, so I just got these two. But apparently he was a 19th century author, writing in the sort of 1830s, 40s, thereabouts. And he was Russian, born in what would in the modern day be Ukraine. So that's interesting. Yeah. And one of these is called the nose, and the other one's called the carriage. And I think the most interesting thing I know about them is that one of them's called the nose, which is a very funny name. But yeah. Anyway. It's been 10 minutes. But yeah. So what am I doing? So I'm gonna have a little drink. If you want to pull any redeem, I feel like I've got to give people a time to do redeems, because I understand that people are probably hesitant to do the funny ones during stories. So if you want to do a redeem, now's a good time for that. While I have a drink and then do my little spiel. But yeah, and then we'll do the little spiel and move on to it. So. But thank you for talking to me. I appreciate it. Right, what are we doing now? So yeah, as always, of course, if at any point you miss something that I've said, either because I've mumbled my words a bit, or there's just been a little bit of interference, feel free to let me know. I'm happy to go back over it. If you have thoughts, comments, questions, I'm happy to listen to them. I'll try and respond during the thing if I can. If not, at the end of each of these, because they're quite short, I'll be doing a little bit of commentary, so that's a good time for it. But yeah, I hope you are sitting comfortably, and if you are, then without any further ado, I shall begin. The nose. 1. An extraordinarily strange event took place in St. Petersburg on 25 March. Ivan Yakovlevich, a barber who lived on Luzhninsky Prospect, his surname has been lost, and all that shop's signs show is a gentleman with lathered cheek and the inscription, "We also let blood," woke up rather early one morning and smelt hot bread. Raising himself slightly on his bed, he saw his wife, who was a quite respectable lady and a great coffee drinker, taking some freshly baked rolls out of the oven. "I don't want any coffee today, Praskovya Osipovna," said Ivan Yakovlevich. "I'll make do with an hot roll and an onion instead." Here I must explain that Ivan Yakovlevich would really have liked to have had some coffee as well, but knew it was quite out of the question to expect both coffee and rolls, since Praskovya Osipovna did not take very kindly to these whims of his. "Let the old fool have his bread, I don't mind," she thought. "That means extra coffee for me," and she threw a roll onto the table. Ivan pulled his frock coat over his nightshirt for decency's sake, sat down at the table, poured out some salt, peeled 2 onions, took a knife, and with a determined expression on his face, started cutting out one of the rolls. When he had sliced the roll in 2, he peered into the middle and were amazed to see something white there. Ivan carefully picked at it with his knife and felt it with his finger. "Quite thick," he said to himself. "What on earth can it be?" He poked 2 fingers in and pulled out a nose. Ivan Yakovlevich let his arm drop to his side and began rubbing his eyes and feeling around in the roll again. Yes, it were a nose all right, no mistake about that. And what's more, it seemed a very familiar nose. His face filled with horror. This horror were nothing compared with his wife's indignation. "You beast! Whose nose is that you've cut off?" she cried furiously. "You scoundrel! You drunkard! I'll report it to the police myself, I will, you thief! Come to think of it, I've heard 3 customers say when they've come in for a shave, you start tweaking their nose about so much it's a wonder they stay on at all." But Ivan felt more dead than alive. He knew that the nose belonged to none other than collegiate assessor Kovalyov, whom he shaved on Wednesdays and Sundays. "Wait a minute, Praskovya. I'll wrap it up in a piece of cloth and put it over there in the corner. Let's leave it there for a bit, then I'll try to get rid of it." "I don't want to know. Do you think I'm going to let a sawn-off nose lie around in my room? You fathead. All you can do is strop that blasted razor of yours and let everything else go to pot. Layabout, nightbird. And you expect me to cover up for you with the police? You filthy pig. Blockhead. Get that nose out of here, out. Do what you like with it, but I don't want that thing hanging around in here a minute longer." Ivan Yakovlevich were absolutely stunned. He thought and thought, but just didn't know what to make of it. "I'm damned if I know what's happened," he said at last, scratching the back of his ear. "I can't say for certain if I come home drunk or not last night. All I know is it's crazy. After all, bread is something you bake, but I knows it's quite different. Can't make head nor tail of it." Ivan Yakovlevich lapsed into silence. The thought that the police might search his place, find the nose, and afterwards bring a charge against him, very nearly sent him out of his mind. Already he could see that the scarlet collar, beautifully embroidered with silver, a sword, and he began shaking all over. Finally he put on his undergarments and boots, pulled on all that nonsense, and with Praskovia Osipovna's vigorous invective ringing in his ears, wrapped the nose up in a piece of cloth, and went out in the street. All he wanted was to stuff it away somewhere, either hiding it between two curbstones by somebody's front door, or else accidentally dropping it and slinking off down a side street. As luck would have it, he kept bumping into friends who would insist on asking, "Where are you off to?" or "It's a bit early for shaving customers, isn't it?" With the result that he didn't have a chance to get rid of it. Once he did manage to drop it, but a policeman pointed with his halberd and said, "Pick that up! Can't you see you dropped something?" And Ivan Yakovlevich had to pick it up and hide it in his pocket. Despair gripped him, especially as the streets was getting more and more crowded now, as the shops and stores began to open. He decided to make his way to St. Isaac's Bridge and see if he could throw the nose into the River Never without anyone seeing him. But here I am rather at fault for not having told you before something about Ivan Yakovlevich, who in many ways are a man worthy of respect. Ivan Yakovlevich, like any honest Russian working man, was a terrible drunkard, and although he spent all day shaving other people's beards, his own was perpetually unshaven. His frock coat, Ivan Yakovlevich never wore a dress coat, could best be described as parboiled, that is to say, it was black, with brownish yellow and grey spots all over it. His collar was very shiny, and 3 loosely hanging threads showed that some buttons had once been there. Ivan Yakovlevich was a great cynic, and whether Kovyalov or the collegiate assessor said, "Your hands always stink," while he was being shaved, Ivan Yakovlevich would say, "But why should they stink?" The collegiate assessor used to reply, "Don't ask me, my dear chap. All I know is they stink." Ivan Yakovlevich would answer by taking a pinch of snuff, and then, by way of retaliation, lather all over Kovalyevich's cheeks, under his nose, behind the ears, and beneath his beard. In short, wherever he felt like covering him with soap. By now, this respectable citizen of ours had already reached St. Isaac's Bridge. First of all, he had a good look round. Then he leant over the rails, trying to pretend he were looking under the bridge to see if there were many fish there, and furtively threw the packet into the water. He felt as if a couple of hundredweight had been lifted all at once from his shoulders, and he even managed to produce a smile. Instead of going off to shave civil servants' chins, he headed for a shop bearing the sign "Hot Meals and Tea" for a glass of punch. Suddenly he saw a policeman at one end of the bridge, looking very impressive with broad whiskers, a 3-cornered hat and a sword. He went cold all over as the policeman beckoned to him and said, "Come here, my friend." Recognising the uniform, Ivan Yakovlevich took his cap off before he had taken half a dozen steps, tripped up to him and greeted him with, "Good morning, Your Honour." No, my dear chap, none of Your Honour. Just tell me what you're up to on the bridge." "A honest officer, I'm on my way to shave a customer and stop to see how fast the current was." "You're lying. You can't really expect me to believe that. You'd better come clean at once." "I'll give Your Honour a free shave twice, even 3 times a week, honest I will," answered Ivan Yakovlevich. Nah, my friend, that won't do. 3 barbers look after me already, and it's an honour for them to shave me. Will you please tell me what you was up to?" Ivan Yakovlevich turned pale. At this point everything becomes so completely enveloped in mist, it is really impossible to say what happened afterward. That's the end of section 1. I'll pause there a moment, have a quick swallow of water. An odd little story, but I'm enjoying it pretty well. Pressing on then. 2. Collegiate Assessor Kovyalov woke up rather early and made a bring noise with his lips. He always did this when he woke up, though, if you asked him why, he could not give any good reason. Kovyalov stretched himself and asked for the small mirror that stood on the table to be brought over to him. He wanted to have a look at a pimple that had made its appearance on his nose the previous evening, but to his extreme astonishment, found that instead of a nose, there were nothing but an absolutely flat surface. In a terrible panic, Kovyalov asked for some water and rubbed his eyes with a towel. No mistake about it, his nose had gone. He began pinching himself to make sure he were not sleeping, but all intents and purposes he were wide awake. Collegiate Assessor Kovyalov sprang out of bed and shook himself. Still no nose. He asked for his clothes, and off he dashed straight to the head of the police. In the meantime, however, a few words should be said about Kovyalov, so that the reader may see what kind of collegiate assessor this man were. You really cannot compare these collegiate assessors who acquire office through academic qualifications with the variety appointed in the caucus. The two species are quite distinct. Collegiate assessors with diplomas from learned bodies. But Russia is such an amazing country that if you pass any remark about one collegiate assessor, every assessor from Riga to Kamchatka will take it personally. And the same goes for all people holding titles and government ranks. Kovyalov belonged to the Caucasian variety. He had been a collegiate assessor for only 2 years, and therefore could not forget it for a single minute. To make himself sound more important, and give more weight and nobility to his status, he never called himself collegiate assessor, but major. If he met a woman in the street selling shirt fronts, he would say, "Hey, who's a Maggie? Thanks for stopping by, I appreciate you being here." If he met a woman in the street selling shirt fronts, he would say, "Listen, dear, come and see me at home. My flat's in Sadovia Street. All you have to do is ask if Major Kovyalov lives there, and anyone will show you the way." If he happened to meet a pretty girl, he would whisper some secret instruction and then say, "Just ask for Major Kovyalov, my dear." Therefore, throughout this story, we will call this collegiate assessor Major. And you kindly use a monkey. Very happy to have you here. And I do appreciate the follow. Major Kovyalov were in the habit of taking a daily stroll along the Nevsky Prospect. "Oh, hey Vic. I'm doing pretty good, yeah. Just working through a couple of Gogol stories. Thank you for stopping by." Major Kovyalov were in the habit of taking a daily stroll along the Nevsky Prospect. His shirt collar were always immaculately clean and well starched. His whiskers was the kind you usually find among provincial surveyors, architects, and regimental surgeons, as well as those who have some sort of connection with the police, with anyone in fact who has rosy cheeks and plays a good hand at whist. These were the kind of whiskers that usually reached for the middle of the face, right across to the nostrils. Major Kovyalov always carried plenty of seals with him, seals bearing coats of arms, or engraved with the words Wednesday, Thursday, Monday, and so on. Major Kovyalov had come to St. Petersburg with the express purpose of finding a position in keeping with his rank. If he was successful, he would get a vice-governorship, but failing that, a job as an administrative clerk in some important government department would have to do. Major Kovyalov were not averse to marriage, as long as his bride happened to be worth 200,000 rubles. And now the reader can judge for himself this major's state of mind when, instead of a fairly presentable and reasonably sized nose, all he saw were an absolutely preposterous, smooth, flat space. As if this were not bad enough, there were not a cab in sight, and he had to walk home, keeping himself huddled up in his cloak and with an handkerchief over his face to make people think he was bleeding. But perhaps I dreamt it. How could I be so stupid as to go and lose my nose? With these thoughts, he dropped into a coffee house to take a look at himself in the mirror. Fortunately, the shop were empty, except for some waiters sweeping up and tidying up the chairs. A few of them, rather bleary-eyed, was carrying trays laden with hot pies. Yesterday's newspaper, covered in coffee stains, lay scattered on the tables and chairs. "Well, thank God there's no one about," he said. "Now I can have a look." He approached the mirror rather gingerly and peered into it. Damn it! What kind of trick is this? He cried, spitting on the floor. If only there was something to take its place, but there's nothing. He bit his lips in annoyance, left the coffee house, and decided not to smile or look at anyone, which were not like him at all. Suddenly he stood rooted at a spot near the front door of some house and witnessed the most incredible spectacle. A carriage drew up at the entrance porch, the doors flew open, and out jumped a uniformed, stooping gentleman who dashed up the steps. A feeling of horror and amazement that gripped Kovyalov when he recognised his own nose defies description. After this extraordinary sight, everything went topsy-turvy. He could hardly keep to his feet, but decided at all costs to wait until the nose returned to the carriage, though he was shaken all over and felt quite feverish. About 2 minutes later, a nose really did come out. He was wearing a gold-braided uniform with an R stand-up collar and chamois trousers, and had a sword in its side. From the plume on its hat, one could tell that it held the exalted rank of state councillor, and it was abundantly clear that the nose were going to visit someone. He looked right, then left, shouted at the coachman, "Let's go!" climbed in, and drove off. Poor Kovyalov nearly went out of his mind. He did not know what to make of it. How, in fact, could a nose, which only yesterday were in the middle of his face, and which could not possibly walk around or drive in a carriage, suddenly turn up in a uniform? He ran after the carriage, which fortunately did not travel very far, and come to an halt outside Kazan Cathedral. Kovyalov rushed into the cathedral square, elbowed his way through the crowd of beggar women who always used to make him laugh because of the way they covered their faces, leaving only slits for the R's, and made his way in. Only a few people were at prayer, and all of them standing by the entrance. Kovyalov felt so distraught that he were in no condition for praying, and his eyes searched every nook and cranny for the nose in uniform. At length he spotted it standing by one of the walls at the side. The nose's face was completely hidden by the R collar, and it was praying with an expression of profound piety. What's the best way of approaching it? Thought Kovyalov. Judging by its uniform, its hat, its whole appearance, it must be a state councillor. But I'm damned if I know how to go about it. He tried to attract his attention by coughing, but the nose did not interrupt his devotions. Ooh.
Vic 104 has been bound to the library.
Thank you for the follow, Vic. I do strongly appreciate it. He tried to attract his attention by coughing, but the nose did not interrupt his devotions for 1 second, and continued to perform low bows. "My dear sir," Kovyalov said, summoning up his courage. My dear sir." "What do you want?" replied the nose, turning around. "I don't know how best to put it, sir, but it strikes me as very peculiar. Don't you know where you belong? Where do I find you? In church of all places. I'm sure you'll agree that..." Fair, I appreciate it. Thank you for stopping by. And again, thank you for the follow. "I'm sure you'll agree that..." "Please forgive me, but would you mind telling me what you're talking about? Explain yourself." "How can I make myself clear?" Kovyalov wondered. Nerving himself once more, he said, "Of course, I am, as it happens, a major. You will agree that it's not done for someone in my position to walk around minus a nose. It's all right for some old woman selling peeled oranges on the Voskresensky Vidge to sit there without one, but as I'm hoping to be promoted soon. Besides, as I'm acquainted with several highly placed ladies, Madame Chekataria, for example, the state councillor's wife, and others, you can judge for yourself. I really don't know what to say, my dear sir." He shrugged his shoulders as he said this. "If one considers this from the point of view of duty and honour, then you yourself will understand." "I don't understand a thing," the nose replied. "Please make yourself clear." "My dear sir," continued Kovyalov in a smug voice, "I really don't know what you mean by that. It's plain enough for anyone to see, unless you want... Don't you realize you are my own nose?" The nose looked at the major and frowned a little. "My dear fellow, you are mistaken. I am a person in my own right. Furthermore, I don't see that we can have anything in common. Judging from your uniform buttons, I should say you're from another governmental department." With these words, the nose turned away and continued his prayers. Kovyalov was so confused he did not know what to do or think. At that moment he heard the pleasant rustle of a woman's dress, and an elderly lady, bedecked with lace, come by, a accompanied by a slim girl wearing a white dress, which showed her shapely figure with very good advantage, and a pale yellow hat as light as pastry. A tall footman with enormous whiskers and what seemed to be a dozen collars stationed himself behind them and opened his snuff box. Gogol went closer, pulled the linen collar of his shirt front up high, straightened the seals hanging on his gold watch chain, and smiled all over his face. Turned his attention to the slim girl, who bent over to pray like a spring flower, and kept lifting her little white hand with its almost transparent fingers to her forehead. The smile on Gogolov's face grew even more expansive when he saw, beneath her hand, a little rounded chin that dazzled him white, and cheeks flushed with the colour of the first rose of spring. And suddenly he jumped backwards, as though he had been burnt. He remembered that instead of a nose, he had absolutely nothing, and tears streamed from his eyes. He swung round to tell the nose in uniform straight out that it were only masquerading as a state councillor, that it were an impostor and a scoundrel, and really nothing else than his own private property, his nose. But the nose had already gone. It had managed to slip off unseen, probably to pay somebody a visit. This reduced Gogol to utter despair. He went out and stood for a minute or so under the colonnade, carefully looking round him in the open spot in his nose. He remembered quite distinctly that it were wearing a plumed hat and gold-embroidered uniform, but he had not noticed what its greatcoat were like, or the colour of its carriage, or its horses, or even if there were a livery footman at the back. What's more, there were so many carriages careering to and fro so fast, it was practically impossible to recognise any of them. And even if he could, there wasn't no way of making them stop. It were a beautiful sunny day. Nevsky Prospect were packed, from the police headquarters right down the Anichikov Bridge. An old floral cascade of ladies flowed among the pavements. Not far off, he could see the court councillor, whom he referred to as a lieutenant colonel, especially if there happened to be other people around. And over there were Yagrin, an head clerk in the Senate, and a very close friend of his, who always lost at whist when he played in a party of 8. Another major, a collegiate assessor, the Caucasian variety, waved to him to come over and have a chat. "Blast and damn them," said Gogol. "Elena Droshky. Driver, take me straight to the chief of police." He climbed into the droshky and started, "Drive like the devil." "He's the police commissioner in." "Oh no, sorry. He's the police commissioner in," he said as soon as he entered the hall. "No, he's not, sir," said the porter. "He left only a few minutes ago." "This really is my day." "Yes," added the porter. "You've only just missed him. A minute ago and you'd have caught him." Gogol, his handkerchief still pressed to his face, climbed into the droshky again and cried out in a despairing voice, "Let's go." "Where?" asked the driver. "Straight on." "Straight on? There's a dead end here. You can only go right or left." This last question made Gogol stop and think. In his position, the best thing to do was to go first to the city security officer, not because it was directly connected with the police, because things got done there much quicker than in any other government department. There were no sense in going for satisfaction direct to the head of the department, where the nose claimed to work, since anyone could see from the answers he had got before that the nose considered nothing only, and was just as capable now of lying as it had done before, claiming now to have set eyes on him. So, just as Gogol were about to tell the driver to go straight to the security office, it again struck him that the scoundrel impostor who had behaved so shamelessly at their first encounter could quite easily take advantage of the delay and slip out of the city, in which event all his efforts to find him would be futile, and might even drag on for another month, God forbid. Finally, inspiration come from above. In a second. He decided to go straight to the newspaper offices and publish an advertisement giving such a detailed description of the nose that anyone who happened to meet it would at once turn it over to Gogol, or at least tell him where he could find it. Deciding this was the best course of action, he ordered the driver to go straight to the newspaper office, and throughout the whole journey, Neil once stopped pummeling the driver in the back with his fist and shouting, "Faster, faster, damn you!" "Sir," the driver retorted as he shook his head and flicked his reins at his horse, which had a coat as long as a spaniel's. Finally, the droshky come to an halt, and the breathless Gogol tore into a small waiting room, where a grey-haired, bespectacled clerk in an old frock coat was sitting at a table with his pen between his teeth, counting out copper coins. "Who sees to advertisements here?" Kovalov shouted. "Ah, good morning." "Good morning," replied the grey-haired clerk, raising his eyes for 1 second, then looking down again at the little pile of money spread out on the table. "I want to publish an advertisement." "Just one moment, if you don't mind," the clerk answered, as he wrote down a figure with one hand and moved 2 beads on his abacus with the other. A footman who, judging by his gold-braided livery, and generally very smart appearance, obviously worked in some noble house, was standing by the table, holding a piece of paper, and, considering it the right thing to display a certain degree of bonhomie, started rattling away. "Believe me, sir, that nasty little dog just didn't worth 80 kopecks. I mean, I wouldn't even give 8 for it. The Countess adores it, just dotes on it she does, and she'll give anyone who finds it a reward of 100 roubles. If we're going to be honest with one another, I'll tell you quite openly, there's no accounting for taste. I can understand a fancier paying anything up to 500, even 1,000 for a deerhound and a poodle, so long as it's a good dog." The worthy clerk listened to him solemnly, while he carried on totting up the words in the advertisement. The room was crowded with old women, salesmen and house porters, all holding advertisements. In one of these a coachman, a sober disposition, was seeking employment. In another, a carriage, hardly used, and brought from Paris in 1814, were up for sale. In another, a 19-year-old servant girl with laundry experience, compared to other work, were looking for a job. Other advertisements offered a drosky for sale, in good condition apart from one missing spring. A young and spirited grey colt, 17 years old. Radish and turnip seeds only just arrived from London. A country house with every modern convenience, including stabling for 2 horses, and enough land to plant an excellent birch or fir forest. And one invited prospective buyers of old boot soles to attend a certain auction rooms between the hours of 8 and 3 daily. The room in which all these people was crammed was small and extremely stuffy. The collegiate espresso Kovalov could not spell anything, as he had covered his face with an handkerchief, and could not have spelt anything anyway, as his nose had disappeared. God knows where. "My dear sir, if I may request you, it's really most urgent," he said, beginning to lose pace. "Just a minute, if you don't mind. 2 roubles 43 kopecks, nearly ready. 1 rouble 64 kopecks." The grey-haired clerk muttered as he shoved pieces of paper at the old ladies and servants standing round. Finally he turned to Kovalov and said, "What do you want?" "I want," Kovalov began. "Something very fishy's been going on, whether it's some nasty practical joke or a plain case of fraud. I can't say as yet. All I want you to do is offer a substantial reward for the first person to find the blackguard." "May I inquire as to your name, sir?" "Why do you need that? I can't tell you. Too many people know me. Mrs. Chektara, for example, who's married to a state councillor. Mrs. Pelageya Podochin, a staff officer's wife. They'd find out who it was at once. God forbid, just put collegiate assessor, or even better, gentleman holding the rank of major." "And the missing person was a household serf of yours?" "Household serf? The crime wouldn't be half as serious. It's my nose that had disappeared. God knows where." Strange name. And did this Mr. Nose steal much?" "My nose, I'm trying to say. You don't understand. It's my own nose that's disappeared. It's a diabolical practical joke someone's played on me." How did it disappear?" "I don't follow." "I can't tell you how. Please understand, my nose is driving at this very moment all over town, calling itself a state councillor. That's why I'm asking you to print this advertisement, announcing the first person who catches it should return the nose to its rightful owner as soon as possible. Imagine what it's like being without such a conspicuous part of your anatomy. It were just a small toe that I could put my shoe on and would be any the wiser. On Thursdays I go to Mrs. Chektarian's. She's married to a state councillor, and Mrs. Podochin, who has a staff officer for her husband, and a very pretty little daughter as well. Also, they're all very close friends of mine. So just imagine what it would be like. In my state, I can't possibly visit any of them." The clerk's tightly pressed lips showed he was deep in thought. "I can't print an advertisement like that in our paper," he said after a long silence. "What? Why not?" "I'll tell you. A paper can get a bad name. If everyone started announcing his nose had run away, I don't know how it would all end. And enough false reports and rumours get past editorial already." "But why does it strike you as absurd?" "I certainly don't think so." "That's what you think. And only last week there was a similar case. A clerk came in here with an advertisement just like you. It cost him 2 rubles 73 kopecks, and all he wanted to advertise was a runaway black poodle. And what do you think he was up to, really? In the end, we had a libel case on our hands. The poodle was meant as a satire on a government cashier. I can't remember what ministry it came from. But I want to publish an advertisement about my nose, not a poodle. That's as near myself as... That's as near as my... That's as I see myself... And that's as near myself as damn it. No, I can't accept that kind of advertisement. But I've lost my nose. And you'd better see a doctor about it. I heard there's a certain kind of specialist who can fix you up with any kind of nose you'd like. Anyway, you seem a cheery sort, and I can see you like to have your little joke. By all that is holy, I swear I'm telling you the truth. If you really want me to, I'll show you what I mean. I shouldn't bother if I were you, the clerk continued, taking a pinch of snuff. However, if it's really no trouble, he added, leaning forward out of curiosity, then I shouldn't mind having a quick look. The collegiate assessor removed his handkerchief. Ah, how very peculiar. It's quite flat, just like a freshly cooked pancake. Incredibly flat. So much for your objections. Now, you've seen it with your own eyes. You can't possibly refuse. I would be particularly grateful for this little favour, and I'm delighted this incident has afforded me the pleasure of making your acquaintance. The Major evidently had decided that a little toad might do the trick. Of course, it's no problem printing the advertisement, the clerk said, but I can't say what you can stand but gain by it. If you like, why not give it to someone with a flair for journalism? Then he can write it up as a very rare freak of nature and have it published as an article in the Northern Bee. There he took another pinch of snuff, so that young people might benefit from, and here he wiped his nose, or else as something of interest to the general public. The collegiate assessor's hopes were completely dashed. He looked down at the bottom of the page, at the theatre guard. The name of a rather pretty actress must brought a smile to his face. He reached down into his pocket to see if he had a 5-ruble note, since in his opinion staff officers should sit only in the stalls. But then he remembered his nose, and knew he could not possibly think of going to the theatre. Apparently even the clerk was touched by Kovyalov's terrible predicament, and thought it would not hurt to cheer him up with a few words of sympathy. I deeply regret that such a strange thing has happened to you. Would you care for a pinch of snuff? It's very good for headaches, and will put fresh heart into you. It's even good for piles. With these words, he offered Kovyalov his snuff box, deftly flipping back the lid, which bore a portrait of some lady in an hat. This unintentional thoughtless action made Kovyalov lose patience altogether. I don't understand how you can joke at a time like this, he said angrily. Are you so blind you can't see I've nothing to smell with? To hell with your snuff. I can't bear to look at it. Anyway, you might at least offer me some real French rapé, not that filthy Berezensky brand. After this declaration, he strode furiously out of the newspaper office and went off to the local inspector of police, a fanatical lover of sugar whose hall and dining room were crammed full of sugar cubes, presented by merchants who wanted to keep well in with him. At that moment, the cook were removing the inspector's regulation jackboots. His sword and all its military trappings was hanging peacefully in the corner, and his 3-year-old son were already fingering his awesome tricorn. And he himself, after a warrior's life for martial exploits, were now preparing to saviour the pleasures of peace. Kovyalov arrived just when he were having a good stretch, grunting and saying, "Now for a nice 2 hours nap." Our collegiate assessor had clearly chosen a very bad time for his visit. The inspector were a great patron of the arts and industry, but most of all he loved government banknotes. There's nothing finer than banknotes, he used to say. They don't need feeding, take up very little room, and slip nicely into the pocket. And they don't break if you drop them. The inspector gave Kovyalov a rather cold welcome, and said that after dinner wasn't at all the time to start investigations. The nature herself had decreed a rest after meals. From this, our collegiate assessor concluded the inspector were well versed in the wisdom of antiquity, that respectable men do not get their noses ripped off, and there were no end of majors knocking around who were not too fussy about their underwear, and who were in the habit of visiting the most disreputable places. These few home truths stung Kovyalov to the quick. Here I must point out that Kovyalov was an extremely sensitive man. He did not so much mind people making a personal remark about him, but it were a different matter when aspersions were cast on his rank or social standing. As far as he was concerned, they could say what they liked about subalterns on the stage, but staff officers should be exempt from attacks. The reception given him by the inspector startled him so much that he shook his head, threw out his arms, and said in a dignified voice, "To be frank, after these remarks of yours, which I found very offensive, I have nothing more to say," and walked out. He arrived home hardly able to feel his feet beneath him. It was already getting dark. After his fruitless inquiries, his flat seemed extremely dismal and depressing. As he entered the hall, he saw his footman, Ivan, lying on a sore leather couch, spitting at the ceiling, managing to hit the same spot with a fair degree of success. The nonchalance of the man infuriated him, and Kovyolov hit him across the forehead with his hat and said, "You fat pig, haven't you anything better to do?" Ivan promptly jumped up and rushed to take off Kovyolov's coat. Tired and depressed, the major went off to his room, threw himself into an armchair, and after a few sighs said, my God, what have I done to deserve this? If I'd lost an arm or a leg, it wouldn't be so bad. Even without any ears, things would be very pleasant. It wouldn't be the end of the world, or wouldn't be very pleasant, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. A man without a nose, though, is God knows what, neither fish nor fowl. Something to be thrown out of the window.
Ah, the rat!
Ooh. Hey, Wild, good to have you. Yeah, glad to have you stop by. We are currently reading The Nose by Nikolai Gogol, in which a man of some minor station in the Russian nobility, God knows what indeed, Blake. Yeah, a man of minor Russian. I thank you kindly, Tanner, I drink that. Yeah, a man of minor Russian nobility has lost his nose. Not in like a fight or anything, it's just missing. Got a big patch of smooth skin where it used to be. We first saw a barber who found the nose in a breakfast roll and tried to dispose of it before being apprehended by the police. And he's seen the nose riding about dressed as an officer of a slightly higher rank. We don't know what's going on. Stretch do? Okay. Yeah, that's where we're at. Okay, yeah, no worries at all. Hope you had a nice time at the zoo. Yeah. Thank you for the drink and the stretch. I'll do them now. And a stretch. Enjoyed that. Yeah, a zoo is a good place. Lots of interesting things, lots of interesting spells. And people tend to drop quite a lot of quite good food. Good place to hang out is the zoo. I hope you had a good time. Yeah, thank you for the stretch and the drink. I did need both of them. Now where was I? A man without a nose, though, is God knows what. Neither fish nor fowl. Just something to be thrown out the window. If my nose had been lopped off during the war, in duel, at least I might have had some say in the matter. But to lose it for no reason at all, with nothing to show for it, not even a kopeck. Okay. Good to know that you're wild, Tanner. No, it's absolutely impossible. It can't have gone like that. Never. Must have been a dream, or perhaps I drank some of that vodka I used for rubbing down my beard after shaving instead of water. That idiot Ivan couldn't have put it away, and I must have picked it up by mistake. To convince himself that he were not in fact drunk, the Major pinched himself so hard that he cried out in pain, which really did convince him he were awake and in full possession of his senses. He stealthily crept over to the mirror and screwed up his eyes in the hope that his nose would reappear in its proper place. But once he jumped back, exclaiming, "That ridiculous blank space again!" You're absolutely incomprehensible. If a button, or a silver spoon, or his watch, or something of that sort had been missing, that would have been understandable. But for his nose to disappear from his own flat, Major Kovyolov weighed up all the evidence and decided the most likely explanation was that Mr. Podochin, the staff officer's wife, who wanted to marry off her daughter to him, were to blame, and no one else. In fact, he liked chasing after her, but never came to propose him. When the staff officer's wife told him straight out that she were offering him her daughter's hand, he politely withdrew, excusing himself on the grounds that he was still a young man, and that he wanted to devote another 5 years to the service, by which time he would be just 42. So, to get her revenge, that staff officer's wife must have decided to ruin him. For that purpose, had hired some old witches. It was quite inconceivable his nose had been cut off. No one had visited him in his flat. His barber Ivan Yakolovich had saved him only last Wednesday, and the rest of that day and the whole of Thursday his nose had been intact. All this he remembered quite clearly. Moreover, he would have been in pain, and the wound could not have healed flat as a pancake in such a short time. He began planning what to do. Either he would sue the staff officer's wife for damages, or he would go and see her personally and accuse her point blank. He was distracted from these thoughts by the sight of some chinks of light in the door, as when Ivan had lit a candle in the hall. Soon afterwards, Ivan appeared in person, holding the candle in front of him, so that it brightened up the whole room. Kovalov's first reaction was to seize his handkerchief and cover up that bare place where only yesterday his nose had been, and stop that stupid man gaping at his master's weird appearance. No sooner had Ivan gone back to his cubbyhole than the strange voice were heard in the hall. "Does Collegiate Assessor Kovalov live here?" Please come in. The Major's home," said Kovalov, springing to his feet and opening the door. A smart-looking police officer, with plump cheeks and whiskers that was neither too light nor too dark. The same police officer who had stood on St. Isaac's Bridge at the beginning of our story made his entrance. "Are you the gentleman who has lost his nose?" "Yes, that's me." "It has been found." "What did you say?" cried Major Kovalov. He could hardly speak for joy. He looked wide-eyed at the police officer, a candlelight flickering on his fat cheeks and thick lips. "How did you find it?" "Very strange. We intercepted it just as it was boarding the stagecoach bound for Riga. Its passport was made out in the name of some civil servant. Strangely enough, I mistook it for a gentleman at first. Fortunately, I had my spectacles with me, so I could see it was really just a nose. I'm very short-sighted, and if you happen to stand just in front of me, I can only make out your face, but not your nose or beard or anything else. In fact, my mother-in-law, that's to say on my wife's side, suffers from the same complaint." Kovalov was beside himself. "Where is it? I'll go right away to claim it." "Don't excite yourself, sir. I knew how much you wanted it back, so I brought it with me. Very strange, but the main culprit in this little affair seems to be the swindler of a barber from Vozvensky Street. He's down at the station now. I've had my eye on him a long time now on suspicion of drunkenness and larceny. And only the day before yesterday he was found stealing a dozen buttons from a shop. You'll find your nose just as it was when you lost it." And the police officer dipped it into his pocket and pulled out the nose wrapped up in a piece of paper. "That's it!" cried Kovalensky. "No mistake. You must stay and have a cup of tea with me." "That would be a great pleasure, but I couldn't. From here I have to go direct to the House of Correction. The price of food has rocketed. My mother-in-law, on my wife's side, is living with me, and all the children as well. The eldest boy seems very promising, very bright, but we haven't the money to send him to school." Kovalov guessed what we were after, and took a note from the table and pressed it into the officer's hand. The police officer bowed very low, and went out into the street, and almost simultaneously Kovalov could hear him telling some stupid peasant who had driven his car up on the pavement what he thought of him. When the police officer had gone, our collegiate assessor felt rather bemused, and only after a few minutes did he come to his senses at all, so intense and unexpected was the joy he felt. He carefully took the nose in his cupped hands, and once more subjected it to close scrutiny. "Yes, that's it, Major Kovalov said. "And there's the pimple that came up yesterday on the left-hand side." The Major almost laughed with joy. But nothing is lasting in this world. Even joy begins to fade after only 1 minute. 2 minutes later, and it's weaker still, until finally it is swallowed up in our everyday prosaic state of mind, just as a ripple made by a pebble gradually merges with the smooth surface of the water. After some thought, Kovalov concluded that all were not right. Yes, the nose had been found, but there still remained the problem of putting it back in place. What if it doesn't stick? And this question, which he now asked himself, made the Major turn pale. With a feeling of inexpressible horror, he rushed to the table and put the mirror nearer, as he were afraid that he might stick the nose on crooked. His hand trembled. With great care and caution he pushed it into place, but the nose just would not stick. He warmed it a little by pressing it to his mouth and breathing on it, and then pressed it again in the smooth space between his cheeks. But try as he might, the nose would not stay on. "Come on now, stay on, you fool," he said. But the nose seemed to be made out of wood. It fell on the table with a strange cork-like sound. The Major's face quivered convulsively. "Perhaps I can graft it," he said apprehensively. but no matter how many times he tried to put it back on, all his efforts was futile. He called Arvin and told him to fetch the doctor, who happened to live in the same block, in the best flat on the first floor. The doctor was an handsome man with farm whiskers as black as pitch, and a fresh-looking healthy wife. Every morning he used to eat apples and was terribly meticulous about keeping his mouth clean, spending at least 3/4 of an hour rinsing it out every day after using 5 different varieties of toothbrush to polish his teeth. It come right away. When he had asked the Major if he had this trouble for very long, the doctor lifted Major Kovalov's head by the chin and prodded him with his thumb in the spot once occupied by his nose, so sharply that the Major hit the wall very hard with the back of his head. The doctor told him not to worry, and made him stand a little way from the wall and lean his head first right. Hitching it at the place where his nose had been, the doctor said, "Hmm." And he ordered him to move his head to the left and produced another "Hmm." Finally, he prodded him again, making Kovalov's head twitch like an horse having its teeth inspected. I'm going to pause now because we're about to enter into the outbreak in about 30 seconds. I don't want anyone to miss anything. Probably we're not actually going to get to the carriage tonight. I didn't expect this to take so long as it did. I was expecting this to be about a 40-minute story. We're already more than that in. So yeah, probably just this one tonight. I will also say it's very suspicious to me. This doctor, the very first thing we learn about him is that he spends all his time eating apples. What kind of doctor does that? Not to be trusted, I suspect. Still, we shall see. Anyway, I'm just coming on now, so I'll see you on the other side while I have my quick drink of water. Now, of course, a number of you will not be in the adverts, either because you are one of my beautiful subscribers whom I adore very dearly, or else because you have not received any adverts for one of the many reasons that Twitch might decide not to give you to them. In which case, let's do a little bit of discussion of what we have so far done of the text. So, first things first, we started with a barber who didn't cut the nose off, at least as far as he's aware, but just found it in a dinner roll. Which, I mean, it's hard to say, really. But, yeah, it's a strange thing. I mean, obviously the whole story is a bit of an absurdist piece, but yeah, he just finds it in a roll that his wife has baked, and then is immediately blamed for cutting it off. And he was drunk the night before, so he can't really argue the point. Though why it would wind up in a roll, who can say? You'd have to be very bad, like very coarse with your bread making not to notice if it had been put in a bag into a thing of flour or whatever. But yeah. Then he goes to dispose of it, can't manage it, seemingly having terrible luck, right until he tries to throw it off a bridge in a river, where he's caught by the policeman we have just re-met. Which is also strange, because the policeman, again, claims to have met the nose as a gentleman, like Kovalov saw. Which, again, it's weird that we never saw the nose as a gentleman, it was just a nose when it was found, just sort of held in his hand. I enjoy the music is coming out. Why is that happening? Oh, well, nothing to be done about it, I can see. Is it just the internet being annoying? Doesn't seem to be going down. Oh, we are having a bit of a technical issue. Sorry about that. If you can. Oh. Everything's reloading itself on the browser. Well, hopefully that'll fix itself before the ads end. But yeah. Oh. Oh no, we're just having issues, just generally. Okay. Well, the stream doesn't seem to be going down, so yeah, hopefully the music comes back on. Sorry about this. But yeah, so it's still strange that the nose is running about as a gentleman. That's the most unanswered question I'd say so far. When it started doing that and why. Now it come to be in the possession of the policeman. Whether he's done something about it since then. But yeah, don't know what's going on with that really. But yeah. Right, well the ads is about to end. That's the only question we can answer. Ooh, music back on, that's good timing. Yeah, I'll have a drink on the way out, and then we'll get back to it. The music's cutting in now. Worst of all options. Okay, that should be the end of the ads. So, oh, I disappeared briefly there, but I seem to be back. Ooh. Yeah, so we'll press on. Like I said, we'll probably just finish this one and move on. As long as these technical issues that have started for no reason don't completely destroy everything, which they look like they're trying to. After this examination, the doctor shook his head and said, "It's no good. It's best to stay as you are, otherwise you'll only make it worse. Of course, it's possible to have it stuck on, and I could do that for you quite easily. But I assure you it would look terrible." "It's marvellous, that is. How can I carry on without a nose?" said Kovalov. "Things can't get any worse. The devil knows what's going on. How can I go around looking like a freak? I mix with nice people. I'm expected to 2 soirees today. I know all the best people. Mrs. Chetkarev, a state councillor's wife. Mrs. Podochin, a staff officer's wife. After the way she's behaved, I won't have any more to do with her, except when I get the policeman on her trail." Kovalov went on pleading. "Please do me this one favour. Isn't there any way? Even if you only get it to hold on, it wouldn't be so bad. But if there were any risk of it falling off, I could keep it there with my hand. I don't dance, which is a help, because any violent movement might make it drop off. And you may rest assured I wouldn't be slow in showing my appreciation, as far as my pocket will allow, of course." The doctor then said in a voice which could not be called loud or even soft, but persuasive and arresting, "I never practice my arts from purely mercenary motives. That is contrary to my code of conduct and all professional ethics. True, I make a charge for private visits, but only so as not to offend patients by refusing to take their money. Of course, I could put your nose back if I wanted to, but I give you my word of honour, if you know what is good for you, it would be far worse if I tried. Let nature take its course. Wash the area as much as you can with cold water, and believe me, you'll feel just as good as when you had a nose. And as far as the nose is concerned, put it in a jar of alcohol. Better still, soak it in 2 tablespoons of sour vodka and warmed up vinegar, and you'll get good money for it. I'll take it myself if you don't want it." "No, I wouldn't sell it for anything," Kovalov cried desperately. "I'd rather lose it again." "I'm sorry," replied the doctor, bowing himself out. "I wanted to help you. At least I've tried hard enough." These words the doctor made a very dignified except Kovalov did not even look at his face. He felt so dazed that all he could make out were the doctor's snowy white cuffs sticking out from the sleeves of his black dress coat. The very next day he decided, before going to the police, to write to the staff officer's wife to ask her to put back in its proper place what belonged to him. Without further ado, the letter read as follows. "Dear Mrs. Alexandra Grigorieva, I cannot understand this strange behaviour on your part. You can be sure, though, that it won't get you anywhere, and you certainly won't force me to marry your daughter. Moreover, you can rest assured that, regarding my nose, I am familiar with the whole history of this affair from the very beginning, and I also know that you, and no one else, are the prime instigator. Its sudden detachment from its rightful place, its subsequent flight, its masquerading as a civil servant, and then its reappearance in its natural state are nothing else than the result of black magic carried out by yourself, or those practicing the same very honourable art. I consider it my duty to warn you that if the above-mentioned nose is not back in its proper place by today, then I shall be compelled to ask for the law's protection. I remain, dear madam, your very faithful servant, Platon Kovyalev." "Dear Mr. Kovyalev, I was simply staggered by your letter. To be honest, I never expected anything of this kind from you, particularly those remarks which are quite uncalled for. I would have you know I have never received that civil servant mentioned by you in my house, whether disguised or not. True, Philip Ivanovich Potenchikovic did used to call, although he wanted to ask my daughter's hand, and despite the fact that he was very sober and respectable and a learned gentleman, I never gave him any cause for hope. And then you go on to mention your nose. If by this you mean to say I wanted to make you look foolish, that is, to put you off with a formal refusal, then all I can say is that I am very surprised that you can talk like this. As you know well enough, my feelings on the matter are quite different. And if you care to make an official proposal to my daughter, I will gladly give you my consent. This has always been my dearest wish, and in this hope I am always at your disposal. Yours sincerely, Alexandra Podochin." "No," said Kovalov when he had read the letter. "She's not to blame. Impossible. A guilty person would never write a letter like that." The collegiate assessor knew what he were talking about in this case, as he had been sent to the caucus several times to carry out legal inquiries. How on earth did this happen then? It's impossible to make heads or tails of it, he said, letting his arm drop to his side. Meanwhile, rumours about the strange occurrence had spread throughout the capital, not, need we say, without a few embellishments. At the time, everyone seemed very preoccupied with the supernatural. Only a short time before, some experiments in magnetism had been all the rage. Besides, the story of the dancing chairs in Koyunesheni Street was still fresh in people's minds, so no one was particularly surprised to hear about Collegiate Assessor Kovyalov's nose taking a regular stroll along the Nevsky Prospect at exactly 3 o'clock every afternoon. Every day, crowds of inquisitive people flocked there. Someone said they had seen the nose in Drunker's store, and this produced such a crush outside the police had to be called. One fairly respectable-looking, bewhiskered entrepreneur who sold stale cakes outside the theatre knocked together some handsome, solid-looking wooden benches and hired them out at 80 kopecks at a time for the curious to stand on. One retired colonel left home especially early one morning, and after a great struggle managed to barge his way through to the front. But to his great annoyance, instead of a nose in the shop window, all he could see were an ordinary woolen jersey and a lithograph showing a girl adjusting her stockings, while a dandy with a small beard and cutaway waistcoat peered out from behind a tree. A picture which had hung in that identical spot for more than 10 years. He left feeling very cross and word to say, misleading the public with such ridiculous and far-fetched stories shouldn't be allowed. Afterward, it was rumoured that Major Kovyalov's nose were no longer to be seen strolling along Nevsky Prospect, but were in the habit of walking Davritsky Park, and they had been doing this for some time. When Kozlev Mirza lived there, he was astonished at this freak of nature. Some of the students from the College of Surgeons went to have a look. One well-known, very respectable lady wrote especially to the head park-keeper, asking him to show her children this very rare phenomenon and, if possible, give them an instructive and edifying commentary at the same time. These events come as a blessing to those social arts, indispensable for any successful party, who loved amusing the ladies, and whose stock of stories were completely exhausted at the time. A few respectable and high-minded citizens was very upset. One indignant gentleman said that he were at loss to understand that such absurd cock-and-bull stories could gain currency in the present enlightened century, the complete indifference shown by authorities past comprehension. Clearly, this gentleman was the type who likes to make the government responsible for everything, even their daily quarrels with their wives. And afterwards, but then again the whole instrument becomes enveloped in mist, and what happens later remains a complete mystery. That's the end of section 2. I'll have a quick swallow of water, but I won't remain silent too long because the music keeps cutting in and out, which is maddening. I don't know why it's doing that. It was playing so nicely there for a while. I really don't. Christ. Okay, let's see if we can fix it, shall we? That does any good? Nope. No, I don't know what's happening with it. It seems to have completely stopped working now. No idea what's going on. Right. Is it stabilised, maybe? I don't know. Nothing to be done about it. Right, let's just press on that. We aren't very far from the end, I think. I do apologise for the music. 3. This world is full of the most outrageous nonsense. Sometimes things happen which you'd hardly think possible. That very same nose, which had paraded itself as a state councillor, and created such an uproar in the city, suddenly turned up as if nothing had happened in its rightful place. That is, between Major Kovalyek's 2 cheeks. This was on the 7th of April. He woke up and happened to glance at the mirror. There was his nose. He grabbed it with his hand to make sure, but there was no doubt this time. Aha! Cried Kovyalov, and, If Arden hadn't come in at that very moment, he would have joyfully danced a trepak around the room in his bare feet. He ordered some soap and water to be brought right away, and as he washed himself, looked into the mirror again. The nose were there. He had another look as he dried himself. Yes, the nose was still there. Look, Ivan, I think I've got a pimple on my nose. Kovalev thought, God, supposing he replies, not only is there no pimple, but no nose either. But Ivan answered, Your nose is quite alright, sir. I can't see any pimple. Thank God for that, the Major said to himself, clicked his fingers. At this moment, Ivan Yakovlevich, the barber, poked his head round the corner, but timidly this time, like a cat which had been beaten for stealing fat. Before you start, are your hands clean? Kovalev shouted from the other side of the room. Perfectly clean. You're lying. On my life, sir, they're clean. Well, they'd better be. Kovalev sat down. Ivan Yakovlevich covered him with a towel, and in a twinkling, with the help of his shaving brush, had transformed his old beard and part of his cheeks into the kind of cream served up at merchants' birthday parties. Well, I'll be damned, Ivan Yakovlevich muttered to himself, staring at the nose. He bent Kovalev's head to one side and looked at it from a distant angle. That's it, all right. You'd never credit it, he continued, and contemplated the nose for a long time. Finally, ever so gently, with delicacy that the reader can best imagine, he lifted 2 fingers to hold the nose by its tip. This was how Ivan Yakovlevich normally shaved his customers. Come on now and mind what you're doing, shouted Kovalevich. Ivan Yakovlevich let his arm fall to his side, stood there more frightened and embarrassed than he had ever been in his life. At last he started tickling Kovalev carefully under the chin with his razor, and although with only his olfactory organ to hold on to without any other means of support, made shaving very awkward, by planting his rough, wrinkled thumb on his cheek and lower gum, in this way gaining some sort of leverage, he finally succeeded in overcoming all obstacles. When everything were ready, Kovalev rushed to get dressed and took a cab straight to the cafe. He had hardly got inside before he shouted, Waiter, a cup of hot chocolate. Went straight up the up to the mirror. Yes, his nose were there. Gaily he turned round, screwed up his eyes, and looked superciliously at 2 soldiers, one who had a nose no bigger than a waistcoat button. Then he went off to the ministerial department, where he petitioned for a vice governorship. Failing this, he was going to try for an administrative post. As he crossed the entrance hall, he had another look in the mirror. His nose was still there. Then he went to see another collegiate assessor, or major, a great way, whose sly digs Kovalev used to counter by saying, I'm used to your quips by now, you old Nikolai. On the way he thought, if the major doesn't split his sides when he sees me, that's a sure sign everything is in its proper place. But the collegiate assessor did not pass any remarks. That's all right then, damn it, thought Kovalev. In the street he met Mrs. Podolchin, the staff officer's wife, who were with her daughter, and they replied to his blow with delighted exclamations, or to his bow with delighted exclamations. Clearly he had suffered no lasting injury. He had a long chat with them, made a point of taking out his snuff box, and stood there for ages, ostentatiously snuffing both his nostrils, as he murmured to himself, That'll teach you, you old hens, and I'm not going to marry your daughter simply para more, as they say, if you don't mind. And from that time onwards, Major Kovalev were able to stroll along Nevsky Prospect, visit the theatre, in fact go everywhere, as though absolutely nothing had happened. And as though absolutely nothing had happened, his nose stayed in the middle of his face, and showed no signs of absenting itself. After that he was in perpetual high spirits, always smiling, chasing all the pretty girls, and on one occasion even stopping at a small shop in the Gostiny Dvor to buy some ribbon for some medal, no one knew why, as he did not belong to any order of knighthood. All this took place in the northern capital of our vast empire. Only now, after much reflection, can we see that there is a great deal that is very far-fetched in this story. Apart from the fact that it's highly unlikely for a nose to disappear in such a fantastic way, and then reappear in various parts of the town, dressed as a state councillor, it's hard to believe that Kovalev was so ignorant as to think newspapers would accept advertisement about noses. I'm not saying I consider such an advertisement too expensive and a waste of money. That's nonsense. And what's more, I don't think I'm a mercenary person. It's all very nasty, not quite the thing at all, and it makes me feel very awkward. And come to think of it, how did the nose manage to turn up in a loaf of bread? And how did Ivan Yakovlevich? No, I don't understand it. Not one bit. The strangest, most incredible thing of all is that authors should write about such things. That, I confess, is beyond my comprehension. It's just... No, I don't understand it at all. Firstly, it's no use to the country whatsoever. Secondly, even that, it's no use either. I simply don't know what one can make of it. However, when all is said and done, one can concede this point or the other, and perhaps you can even find... Well, then you won't find much that isn't on the absurd side somewhere, will you? Yet if you stop to think it for a moment, there's a grain of truth in it. Whatever you may say, these things do happen in this world. Rarely, I admit, but they do happen. And that is The End of the Nose by Nikolai Gogol. Cheeky bugger, he's stealing my job. Right, so, what can we make of that? I've got no idea. That was a very silly little absurdist story. And the author himself admits that he's very strange for an author to write such things. But, it was a fun one. How are we doing time-wise? There's 53. Next one's only 15 pages, whereas this one was 35. So we might be able to get the carriage in. Let's see, that was an hour and 10. It'd be close if we did. I don't think I'm pushing. So I think that's going to be our story there, so let's do a little bit of more reflection, shall we? Yeah. It's really hard to make a sort of concrete commentary on the nature of that story, given that it is, I mean, by its author's own admission, a very absurd one. A deliberately sort of jokey kind of... I don't know if I even call it jokey. It's strange, it's deliberately absurd. And the author is definitely making fun of you at the end a little bit. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of fun to sort of think of what might have happened. To my mind, I suspect that there is some... if you were going to try and put an actual out on it, my theory would be that the wife who he wrote to, the woman who wanted him to marry his daughter, did actually put an X on him and then got the scare on when he wrote to her. But I don't think that's sort of the point of it. I think the point is just, yeah, sometimes things happen that are weird and there's no point to them. Which is a funny point to have. I think I quite enjoy Nikolai Gogol. He's not one of the ones who are an author who I've really thought much of before. This is my first time reading any of his stuff. He's got quite a fun voice. I normally think of Russian literature as quite, what's the term? Not depressing necessarily, but a little bit, well, maybe depressing. Grim, so sober, there's the words. This one's quite a fun sort of, how'd you say, quite a lively sort of, I guess absurd voice, but fun too. I enjoyed it. I don't actually, thinking of it, I guess a lot of what I think of that is that Nikolai Gogol. You're very welcome there, though. I guess that's sort of normally stuff I think of, well, Russian literature that's translated from Russian. I don't know if Gogol wrote in Russian now I think about it. I'd imagine he did. Certainly his name is very Russian, which I did struggle with a bit. But yeah, I enjoyed that. I feel like I've got to say some stuff about this because I've got to put a hat on it, but really, there's not much else to say other than, yeah, that was fun. I liked that. I hope the rest of you, I hope everyone who's here has enjoyed it as well. Like I say, tomorrow will be our big 100, so those badges you can see on screen are not currently available, they're available tomorrow. Thank you, Blake. So yeah, stop by for that. I'll be reading in, there's the way. Mysterious Patch. Yeah, I'll be reading up close to the mic and trying to give it a bit more of an ASMR feel, so hopefully that'll be a good time. So I do hope you stop by for that. As always, I do very much appreciate everyone who has stopped by. Yeah. Fitz, good to see you. I appreciate you being here as well. Yeah. You're all very welcome. I hope you've enjoyed this as well. It's always a bit of a dice roll to me when I read a book that I don't know anything about. So I'm glad that Gogol turned out good. Yeah, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, all of you. And that, yeah, and that, well, no, what am I saying? Yeah. I was on such a roll and I stumbled. Yeah, Mysterious Pouch is the way forward. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, up until the start of my next stream, which again, you have to come back if you want the rest of my blessing. I do appreciate all of you for being here. I hope you've enjoyed the story. I hope you have a great night too, Fitz. I hope all of you have a lovely rest of your day. I should be looking to see if there's anyone around to raid out into. That is a thing that I should be doing. Leslie's streaming. Les hasn't been streaming in a while. Well, Leslie's streaming Dead Space, which is probably a bit of a different vibe, so if you're not up for that, feel free to duck. But yeah, he's a friend of mine, hasn't been streaming for a while, so we'll swing over there, I think. But yeah. So we'll do that, get that set going. But yeah. Ooh. Okay. Ooh, and now I'm having technical troubles again as I start the raid. At least I hope I'm raiding. Ooh, news cut out. Okay, it's showing that we are raiding. Okay, grand. Oh, okay. But yeah, I hope the rest of you have. Well, I hope that you all have a lovely rest of your evening. As always, and or rest of your evening, rest of your day, whatever time it happens to be. I very much appreciate you stopping by, and as always, ta-ra.